Okay, let's look at number 18. Name an angle complementary to COD. What does that word complementary mean? That means two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. Do you remember how we remember that? You can take the C and change it to a 9 and you've got 90, okay? So COD is this angle right here. And we're naming an angle that's complementary to it, which means an angle that goes with this one to make 90. Well, by definition, since this is a 90-degree angle and perpendicular, this whole thing is a 90-degree angle and perpendicular, which means this one and this one would make your add up to 90. So that's angle BOC. That's your answer. Because BOC and COD make up BOD, which is a 90-degree angle. Okay, number 19, write a definition for supplementary. Remember, we can change the S in supplementary to an 8 and then put a 1. So you've got 180. Supplementary is two angles. Remember, only two whose sum is 180 degrees. Remember, a linear pair is a type of supplementary angle pair. The only difference is the linear pair is also adjacent. You don't have to have adjacent supplementaries. Here's your possibilities for supplementary. You can have your linear pair, which is your adjacent group, or you could have two separate angles that have nothing to do with each other. That's 60, and that's 120. Those are supplementary. They're just not adjacent. So there's two examples. All right, number 20. 1 and 2 are supplementary. Immediately write 180 every time you see that. And 1 and 3 are vertical. The measure of angle 2 is 67. Find the measure of angle 3. Okay. 1 and 2 are supplementary. So the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is 180. I know that because it says 1 and 2 are supplementary. Okay. The next piece says 1 and 3 are vertical. What do we know about verticals? They're always congruent. So I know that the measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 3. Now let's do some substitution. Measure of angle 2 is 67. Got it right there. So the measure of angle 1 plus 67, which is right there, equals 180. So the measure of angle 1, if I use subtraction and I subtract the 67, equals 113. Okay, so angle 1 is 113. What do we know about angle 1? It equals angle 3. So if angle 1 is 113, what's angle 3? 113. Okay. All right, 21. Identify the hypothesis and the conclusion. And what we did in class was we underlined the hypothesis once and the conclusion twice. What I'm probably going to do, just for time purposes, I'll underline the hypothesis in pencil and the conclusion in pen. All right, the hypothesis is what's going to happen first. It's the if part of the statement, but not with the if. Tomorrow is Friday. I'm just going to put an X over that because it's not really, the if is not really part of the hypothesis. We really didn't take off if you wrote it that way, but technically it's not. Then the conclusion is what's going to happen if the hypothesis happens. Then today's Thursday. There's your hypothesis and conclusion. Okay, let's look at 22. If an obtuse angle is bisected, then two acute angles are obtained. Decide whether the statement and its converse are true. If false, explain. Okay, what's an obtuse angle? Okay, that's one that's greater than 90 and less than 180. So let's draw one. What is the maximum measurement that an obtuse angle can be? And we'll put it there. 179.9, technically. All right, let's be technical. That's the largest obtuse angle you're going to have, 179.9999999, because it can't reach 180. If I bisect it, if I cut it in half, am I going to get two acute angles? Well, let's see. If I cut it in half, what is 179.9 divided by 2? Well, what for sure do you know it's not going to reach? It is not going to be equal to 90, right? It is going to be less than 90. So the answer is yes. These will both be acute. Okay, so the original statement is true. Now, is the converse true? The converse is we're going to flip it around. So now instead of saying an obtuse angle is bisected, then the acute angles are obtained, I'm going to say if two acute angles are obtained, then an obtuse angle is bisected. Is this true or not? Do you have to bisect an obtuse angle to get two acute angles? No. This is false. Just because you have two acute angles and you got them somehow, it doesn't mean you bisected an obtuse angle. What happens if you bisect an acute angle? What if I took a 60-degree angle and I bisected it? What do I have? A 30 and a 30, two acute angles, right? I didn't bisect an obtuse angle. So that's not true. So that's why it's false. Okay. All right. Number 23, sketch an example of consecutive interior. We don't call these consecutive interior anymore. We call them same side interior. So I'm going to make the sketch down here because we're kind of running out of room. But the same side interior angles are basically what happens when you have the transversal and the two lines, this guy and this guy. Those are your same side interiors. 24 says, according to the parallel postulate, if there is a line and a point not on that line, then how many parallels to the given line can be drawn through the point? So, if I have a line and I have a point not on that line, how many parallels can be drawn through this point that are parallel to that line? Well, there's one answer. One. Only one. Here's why. This line has to have the same slope as this line to be parallel, right? They both have to have the same slope. That is slope with an E, not the slop. Well, there's only one direction you can draw a line, and we're not talking about one direction like the band. There's only one direction you can draw a line through P, which has it have the same slope as this line. If I draw any other sloped line, they will eventually meet. They won't work, okay? If I draw another line through P with the same slope, it's going to be the same line as the one I already have, okay? All right, so let's see. We'll finish up. We'll go on to this page here. Okay, in the figure, measure of angle ABC is 125 degrees. Which statement is false? Okay, ABC is 125, right there. What do these little arrowheads mean? Those mean parallel. So when we look at parallel, now we got to look at all the special angle pairs. All right, so GEF. Is GEF 125? Well, if these lines are parallel, what kind of angles are this one and this one? They are alternate exterior, and since the line is parallel, that is true. And I'm going to put because they're alternate exterior angles. When the lines are parallel, they become congruent, so that's true. All right, let's look at DEF. DEF is 125. That's this one. Well, DEF and GEF would be a linear pair, which means they would have to add up to what? 180. Is 125 plus 125 180? No, that is false. The other reason is ABC and DEF are same side exteriors. Those should add up to 180. So no, that is incorrect. So let's look at the next one. HBF, H, follow the line, H, B, F. That's this angle right here. HBF and AED. AED is this one. AED D, that's this guy, are alternate interior angles. Here and here, yes, they are. Okay. And ABH, ABH, that's this angle right here. I'm going to color it in. And AEG, AEG, this guy, are corresponding angles. Yes, those are corresponding. True. Okay, 26. Find the slope of the line that passes through the points A and B below. Well, here's your slope formula. Remember the slope formula is the change in y over the change in x? Okay, right. You hear rise over run. You got to be kind of careful about that because it's not always rising and running. But you can still use it. I'm not going to be that picky. Which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So for my slope, remember, I always write the equation and then plug in. What are my two x's? -1 and 7. Why do I always write it like this and write the signs in there first? Because sometimes you guys see a negative and you assume that's also the negative, and that's completely independent of what you plug in. So you got to make sure you have all the signs correct. And then let's look at the two. Sorry, I just did that wrong. Let's backtrack a little bit. Why didn't y'all tell me I messed up? Come on, guys. So I've got this. I've got -1 and 7. Those are my x values. Those go on the bottom, okay? Then I've got 5 and 1. Those are my y values. They go on the top, okay? So 5 minus 1 is 4. -1 minus 7 is -8. So I have -1/2. Now, you know it's going to be a negative slope because it's slanted this way. If you remember